My father wrote this in 2015, and clearly he edited it a couple times since then, but here we go. Today we join in sadness to honor our dear friend, President Carter, for his extraordinary years of principled and decent leadership and his courageous commitment to civil rights and human rights. I remember the emergence of Jimmy Carter on the national stage, in particular his 1971 inaugural address. For the first time, a Georgia governor called for a commitment to the traditions of Martin Luther King Jr. and for the decency that his leadership stood for over his lifetime. I was surprised when then candidate Carter asked me to join in him as his running mate in 1976. He amazed me then, as he has every year since. He, of course, was brilliant. He also had a great sense of humor. And while we had only 4 years in the White House, he achieved so much in that time. It stood as a marker for Americans dedicated to justice and decency. Carter was a man of his word. I remember when he talked about the concept of the vice presidency. I told him I'd like to do it and had only 2 requests. I wanted to make a real contribution, and I didn't want to be embarrassed, as many of my predecessors have. He agreed, welcomed my full participation, and directed his staff to treat me as they would him. He was very careful to protect me from the frustration and too often humiliation that had cursed the lives of many vice presidents. I want to thank the president for the good choices he made with his key personnel. We don't have time to mention many of them, but Stu Eisenstadt comes as close as possible to rivaling President Carter's formidable work ethic. Hamilton Jordan and Jody Powell were blessings every day, to me, to the president, and to the nation. One of the things that dawned on me during the course of our time together is how well we worked together and how we understood each other. I think one of the realities was that Carter was a devout Christian who grew up in a small town and was active in his faith for almost every moment of his life. I was also a small town kid who grew up in a Methodist church where my dad was a preacher, and our faith was core to me, as Carter's faith was core to him. That common commitment to our faith created a bond between us that allowed us to understand each other and find ways to work together. He allowed me to take a leadership role on issues that never would have happened before. For instance, he directed and trusted me to take a central role in trying to bring decency to the Vietnamese and Southeast Asian boat people who were fleeing their country. With President Carter's orders, the boat people were picked up by our great Navy from their flimsy boats, which were capsizing, and taken to safety. Most became good American citizens working for a healthy and prosperous nation. Joan loved her time as the Second Lady. And we have Jimmy and Rosalind to thank for helping her champion the public arts and for just being so kind to her. These were good years for Joan and I. President Carter and I became very close friends. We often spent hours together throughout the day. We were working on real problems, not wasting time. The personal relationship we established while in office continued throughout our life. Carter was farsighted. He put aside his short-term political interests to tackle challenges that demanded sacrifice, to protect our kids and grandkids from future harm. Very few people in the 1970s had heard the term climate change. Yet Carter put his presidency on the line to pass laws to conserve energy, deregulate new oil and gas prices, and invest in clean, renewable alternatives to fossil fuels. It wasn't a perfect program, but thanks to President Carter, U.S. energy consumption declined by 10% between 1979 and 1983. In many ways, he laid the foundation for future presidents to come to grips with climate change. Some thought he was crazy to fight so hard to pass these laws, but he was dead right, and we know that now. We also know that President Carter elevated human rights to the top of his agenda. Sometimes we forget how seriously he pushed to advance the rights of women. He proposed and signed the law extending the period for states to approve the Equal Rights Amendment. He appointed women to head the departments of Commerce, Education, HUD, and what is now HEW. Women on his White House staff played crucial roles in developing his highest priority energy and environmental proposals. And he dramatically increased the ranks of female circuit and district court judges, including Ruth Bader Ginsburg. In all, he appointed 5 times as many women to the federal bench as all of the previous presidents had from the beginning of our country. 2 decades ago, President Carter said he believed income inequality was the biggest global issue. More recently, in a 2018 commencement address at Liberty University, he said, "I think now the largest global issue is the discrimination against women and girls in this world." He concluded that until stubborn attitudes that foster discrimination against women change, the world cannot advance, and poverty and income equality cannot be solved. Towards the end of our time in the White House, the President and I were talking about how we might describe what we tried to accomplish in office. We came up with a sentence which remains an important summary of our work. We told the truth, we obeyed the law, and we kept the peace. That we did, Mr. President. I will always be proud and grateful to have had the chance to work with you towards noble ends. It was then and will always be the most rewarding experience of my public career. Thank you.